If you've been tuning in for the last couple of weeks, I've been sharing some of the secrets of what you can do on your own at home in order to reduce some of your period problems. And this week is no exception. Join me as we take a look at rule number 3 of how you can take care of yourself and reduce your period problems.
Hi, I'm Adrienne Irizarry. I'm an Eastern medicine practitioner who is passionate about women's health and helping women live their best lives. My goal is to put you in the driver's seat of your menstrual health, offering period solutions for a symptom-free life. Statements made in this program are for educational purposes only and not intended as a substitution for medical consultation or advice. We do not claim to diagnose, treat, or cure any diseases. This podcast is inclusive and welcomes all gender identities. The focus of the program is on biological function, and we will use the term women throughout, but it is referencing physiological and social challenges for biology, not identity. Come as you are, I am happy you're here and welcome all performances of identity. I hope you find something helpful in this show.
Welcome back to another episode of the Reproductive Rebel podcast. The last couple of weeks, we've been taking a little journey through some of the shortcuts that we all should have been taught when we first started to be bleeding bodies about how to generally take care of ourselves in order to reduce period symptoms. This week, we look at rule number 3, which is probably not going to be a super popular topic in Western culture. I am going to be directing my focus at iced and cold beverages and foods. Oh, I felt the entire audience recoil when I said that. And yes, one of my favorite foods is ice cream. So I am part of that collective as well. However, when we are talking about our cycles and being bleeding bodies and our digestion and the successful and optimal functioning of all of those things while we are bleeding bodies, iced and cold food and beverages really are our adversary and not our friend. When you live in a warm culture and all you want is ice water, I understand the appeal, but I assure you that it is only working against your body and not for it. So just like steaming, pelvic steaming. So if you haven't had a chance to check out some of the episodes that I've done about pelvic steaming, I would encourage you to take a look at them. But pelvic steaming increases your circulation for 3 to 4 days. So you have a positive influence on the circulation equation for more than just the day you sit on the stool and steam. The same is true for iced and cold beverages, except in the opposite direction. It slows and stagnates your circulation. So if it slows your circulation, and a slowing of circulation is a culprit behind period pain, cramping, and clots, do you see the correlation? I'm hoping that you do, and you'll keep listening to the rest of this episode because I completely understand how unpopular this idea of please don't put ice in your smoothies and eat foods room temperature and warmer is going to be received by Western culture. Now, I say Western culture, it's more of an American thing, right? So we go to the refrigerator and we pull out a cold beer. If you go to Europe, they drink them room temperature. They don't have all of the digestive issues that we have here either. So let's now look at when your body is the most vulnerable in postpartum and during menstruation. In order to help the healing process and the menstrual process happen with as few issues as possible, the more ways we can keep ourselves warm and support our circulation, the more effective the postpartum healing will be and the menstrual period will be. So one thing I've seen online, and it really drives me crazy, is when people are like, oh, here's a shortcut to making sure you get all of your minerals in while you're postpartum. Make yourself a smoothie. As you see in the video, they're adding ice into their blender with a lot of other frozen foods. Okay. I understand that you're looking for a quick and easy way to have all of these things in one place. And yes, mom is juggling a lot. She's trying to figure out all the ways she can properly nourish herself with one hand free. However, ice and frozen berries and frozen foods and things of that nature are going to make things harder for her body to recover properly. Because the reality of it is, she's not going to get all of the minerals and nutrients and all the good stuff that she's putting into that unless it is served warmer. The reason for that is we have to support our stomach action. Our stomach likes things to have a little extra chi added into them. The vast majority of people in Western culture do not have enough fermented foods in their day-to-day diet. They don't have enough acidic stuff. And when I say that, I'm thinking like apple cider vinegar, kombucha, sauerkraut, kimchi. They're not eating these things on a regular basis in their diet. So they don't have really strong stomach actions. It's where a lot of our gastrointestinal issues happen in our culture. We have to put good flora into our body for our body to work properly. Chinese medicine talks about it in terms of stomach qi. It's kind of like burning wood in a fire. Okay. And you'll see, again, if you follow me on Instagram at Moon Essence Me, you'll occasionally see me post videos like, this is what strong digestive fire looks like, right? When I'm outside at camp, because I can't help but see this visual, and the visual helps me explain it to other people. So if you've ever sat around a campfire or you burn wood in your house, you'll totally understand this analogy. When you have wet wood or green wood, when you light it, what happens? You get a whole bunch of smoke, everybody's coughing and choking, but there's no flame, or there's very little flame, and it will just kind of smolder and smoke the entire time, but you don't actually get it roaring into a fire. You have to have dry wood in order for a fire to really take root. If you try to create that same fire using all dry wood, it will burn hot, it will consume all of the wood and burn it completely down to ash with very little effort. That's the kind of fire we want to have in your stomach, right? We want it to be able to consume everything that you're putting into it so it can take all of those tools, all of those building blocks that it breaks the food down into and use it. So your body's getting the maximum benefit of all of the good stuff that you're putting into it. Now, one of the ways that that happens is with warmth, because that is added chi. So just like I mentioned in the last episode, episode 14, we were talking about how you cook your food, right? So the more chi you add to your food, the easier it is for your body not only to deliver that chi to other parts of your body, but to be able to break the food down that's inside of your stomach as well. The stomach needs to have certain tools to be able to break food down in the stomach. And the more we eat foods that are iced and cold, it slows that action down. A lot of people complain about bloated belly. Sometimes that bloat happens around the period. That's a form of stagnation. Sometimes that bloat happens all month long. I eat, I look 3 months pregnant, or I look 4 months pregnant, right? I eat, I have to unbutton my pants. Show of hands. Anybody raising their hand? Yes, this is me. Sister speaks for me, right? So many of us experience this, but let's start thinking about what you eat during the day. Are you drinking milk straight out of the fridge? Are you putting ice in a smoothie in the morning? Is that how you get your breakfast in? What temperature do you drink your water at? Like, I was a fiend for cold water, ice in my water, ice cream, all of these things. Ice cream was one of my favorite foods. Let me tell you, that was a really hard one to give up. And once I did, and I gave my stomach time to adjust, to this new way of being, meaning drinking my water room temperature or warmer, like making tea, for example, even in the summertime. Okay, so I'll go over to my Berkey and I'll pour water straight out of the Berkey and drink it that way. I don't make it colder. I don't put it in the refrigerator, nothing. I will open the spigot on the Berkey, I'll pour the water into the glass, and I'll drink it that way. My digestion has improved so much. The fact that my thyroid was starting to be on the borderline low end of things started to improve. It isn't the only thing, but it does help. Serving all of my food warm, or if it's in the summer and I'm having a salad, I'll make sure I have a vinegary dressing, which does help my stomach to process it. And I'll often chase it with tea, like ginger tea, for example, because ginger helps the digestive action and the heat, not only from the ginger, because ginger is warming, but also from the water that makes the tea, helps my stomach to digest things. I think back to my grandmother, God rest her, and every single night after we had dinner, she would put tea on. And I always looked at it as this ritual thing that she did every night. We would have dinner, then we would sit down and we would watch Jeopardy, and she would put the tea kettle on, right, after we had dinner. And I always recognized it and honored it as ritual, but never really thought about how it functioned in my body until after she passed. And I realized that's probably why she lived into her 90s, because she supported her digestion. She was getting more out of the food she put into her stomach. Sure, would she eat peas in the garden when we were harvesting peas? Yeah. But in general, she ate her food cooked and she chased it with tea. Our body likes warmth. It really, really does. It likes warmth in our food. It likes warmth, especially when we're on our bleeding days, because it means that there is enough warmth and chi being added to the body that the body doesn't have to generate it. Okay. So when we put cold foods into our stomach, our body goes, shit, I don't have enough energy to do all of this, because not only do I have to warm it up, but then I also have to break it down, which takes twice the effort. So it goes, okay, well, these lower extremities here have some extra energy. So let's go back to the first episode in this 3-episode mini series, where I was talking about circulation in the lower part of your body tends to be where we rob the body of energy first in order to make sure that stomach, lungs, brain all function optimally, because that's what keeps us alive, right? So if we think back to that premise and we apply it to our digestion, our stomach goes, I only have enough energy to do the digestion. I don't have enough energy to warm this up too. So it takes energy and moves it from the lower jowl, right? The lower part of our body, from our belly button down to our toes, up into our stomach so that there's enough energy to go around. Well, you can only rob Peter to pay Paul so many times before you start developing a chronic problem. So maybe you just start with only warm foods during your period, because I understand that this suggestion is foreign and there are going to be many of you that are going to resist the idea of not eating things cold or iced. I had clients years ago who really fought me on this no smoothie coldness idea. And so our compromise was, okay, if you're going to insist on having your smoothie that way, follow it with a cup of tea. I don't care what you drink. Ginger would be ideal, but I don't care what else you have. Follow it with warm something, warm water, warm food. I don't care. Just something warm. And that one change, they saw their very next cycle. They saw a difference in how their period showed up, just with that one change. Are you over 35 years old and starting to feel like something is shifting in your body? Maybe you've reached 40 and you're starting to look at your period and go, what is going on here? This isn't like it always was. Or maybe you're starting to feel a little bit of the hormonal weight gain, the emotional roller coaster, and so much more. These are all things that you'll see in the perimenopausal period, and we don't talk nearly enough about what's happening during perimenopause. Join me on April 17th from 6 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Coming into Second Spring. What is Second Spring? This is when we go through our perimenopausal and menopausal journey, and I want to make sure that you can address any of the negative symptoms as you're going through this phase and teach you what's actually going on inside of your body. The link to register is in the show notes. Join me on April 17th at 6 o'clock. There will be a recording circulated afterwards because this period of our life, we should thrive and not merely survive. And now, back to the show. So don't underestimate the power of supporting your digestion. We need it with certain types of flora. Okay, you're getting this from your fermented foods. You're getting it from apple cider vinegar. You could even use something like digestive bitters, for example. But we really have to support our digestion. We do not do a good job of that, particularly in the United States, but in Western culture in general. That's one of the things we have to do. The other is during a time where your body is putting energy in a bunch of other places. Okay, so thinking healing postpartum and during your period. Okay. Postpartum, I think, is the time you are literally the most fragile in terms of your digestive action, the chi or vital energy in your body, and what resources you have on board in order to be able to do all of the things that your body's trying to do. If you're trying to breastfeed, you're trying to make milk, your body's trying to heal, your body's trying to, whatever food you can get in with one hand, it's taking all of that and it's trying to put it towards literally your survival and the survival of your child, right? So you still have a huge demand on your resources when you're in postpartum. Your stomach is weak. Hell, it's just coming back into the pre-baby position, for God's sake, because it's been pushed aside by this little body for so long, right? So warmth is key. Your body cannot work hard. If you look at traditional postpartum foods, you're looking at congees, you're looking at soups, you're looking at stews, you're looking at things that have bone broth foundation to them. You're looking at eggs, the things that help to nourish our body in all of the key ways that we need to heal, all need to be served warm. That same premise is true when we have our period. Our chi and the fabric of our body isn't quite as challenged as it is in the postpartum because you haven't just taken all of the fabric of your entire body to build a little person for 9 months and then nurse them afterwards, right? So your body isn't quite as fragile because it hasn't used and expended quite as many resources. However, you will bleed harder if your body is weaker because it's kind of like your body loses control of the wheel of the car and it goes, shit, I'm just too tired for this. I can't control it. So people who have floodgate bleeding or they stand up and they feel whoosh, their vital energy is weak. The body literally cannot control the aperture that is opening and closing to control the flow of the blood. Little changes like eating easy to digest foods and supporting that by serving them warm, cutting back on how much you are consuming that is iced and cold. Food straight out of the fridge. Like I've been eating this way for 9 years now. And I can tell you, like, yogurt straight out of the fridge hurts my stomach now. My body, like, can feel my stomach, like, tighten against it. Same thing with ice cream. I had a mint chocolate. Oh my God, I'm such a fiend for mint chocolate. And I had a mint chocolate non-dairy frozen bar. It was tiny, but I had that the other night and I could feel as soon as it hit my stomach, I'm like, oh, this was a bad idea. This was a bad idea. And I had warm liquid after, but I started developing a headache that night. And I'm like, ugh. So my body has just become so used to having that extra energy put in that when it had to pull harder to create this digestive action for this cold item that I put into my stomach, I really felt it in the rest of my body. Not only did my body feel cooler, but I had to like work myself through a headache afterwards, digestive upset afterwards, like all that kind of stuff. And it's like, ugh. And it really comes down to the fact that my body knows what it needs to do. And if it doesn't have enough of something, I've really become accustomed to feeling the difference between it needing to work hard and not. I never noticed that difference before, but it's because I was so used to what it felt like that it seemed like just a normal day-to-day thing for me. Oh, I get a little bit of digestive upset after I eat. I always attributed it to being celiac and have come to find out that it actually has nothing to do with being a celiac and everything to do with the fact that my stomach works better when I make it easier for her to digest what I put into her. So that's just day-to-day stuff, right? During your period, your energy is being put to other places, building blood, trying to stay warm, right? So if we really look at this trifecta of covering the body to keep the body warm, giving the body foods that are easy to digest, and serving these easy to digest foods warm, now your body goes, oh, I'm being held in all of the ways that I need. I don't have to work harder for my circulation. I don't have to work harder to scour the body for tools in order to build blood and execute the period effectively. This is great. And she just quietly does what she's supposed to do, and then it's done. And I know for some of you, you just laugh and you go, this sounds like a unicorn, Adrian. You're insane. And I promise you, this isn't insanity. So there is a course on my website called Proper Period Care. I highly recommend you check it out. It is short, sweet, and to the point. It dives a little bit deeper into some of these things that we've covered in the last 3 episodes. Just changing how you dress, what you eat, and how you eat it during the days that you have red blood will change the way your period shows up the next month. It will. Because I've had clients that come in and they do an intake appointment with me and then I don't hear from them for several months. And then they reach back out to me and they go, you know what? I took just those pieces of advice that you gave me during that appointment and I wanted to see if it was going to work. And they're blown away by how big a difference they see just from those lifestyle changes. Just those. No extra supplements, not selling you on any products. They haven't started steaming with me, nothing. Just changing those 3 things during their period. The ones that get the best change are the ones that are mindful of these tricks all month long and execute them during their period. But bare minimum, just making those changes during your period will fundamentally change how your period shows up. It can't help but do that because you're now making her not work so hard. This body that you live in doesn't have to work so hard. You're giving this body all the tools that it needs to function the way that it knows how to. We develop symptoms because we're depriving our system of a tool or a series of tools that it needs to function optimally. That's the only reason that we have period problems. Is there is something that isn't working properly because it doesn't have all of the resources that it needs. Our bodies are brilliant. They know what they need. They know when they're not getting it and when they scour the body for those resources and they can't find it. And symptoms become a way of your body lovingly trying to communicate with you that it needs something, that it's looking for something, that it needs help with something, and it's asking you for that help in the only language that it knows how. So that's why I did this little mini series so that you know what you're looking for. Because the biggest crime against bleeding bodies is a collective lack of education. If we were only given this stuff when we were young, I just look at my life as somebody who has celiac and has endometriosis and was told at 14 she'd never be able to have children and all of these things that, man, if I had only known that keeping my body warm, only eating warm food while I was bleeding, and to slow my life down a little bit for the days that I had red blood would completely change how my period showed up. Oh my God, I would have been on that in a second. It would have changed everything. I never would have gone on birth control to quote unquote regulate my period. I never would have had a heart attack at 25 because I had been on that medication for so long and it didn't agree with my body. But I didn't have any other options. And the medical model said, well, if you're still open to having kids, this is your only option that isn't permanent. So I didn't know what else to do. My life would have been fundamentally changed forever if I had only had these 3 rules of the road from the very beginning. So I offer them to you as a gift to reclaim your life. Your period doesn't have to run your life. You can. You should. You deserve to. And that comes from understanding what this body is asking for, what it needs, and how to support it best. Protect against wind. Cover your body so that your body stays warm. Serve it easy to digest food. Think, what would I eat after I've had a stomach bug? Eat those things. And last but certainly not least, how can I reduce the volume of iced and cold foods and beverages that I consume and let me avoid them completely during my bleeding days? That's it. That's a really short list. And yet, putting those things into practice regularly, yeah, there'll be a little bit of mind over matter. Because believe me, it was mind over matter for me when I had to give up ice cream. Now, if I have ice cream, I literally choose to eat it on the hottest day of the summer, and I chase it with warm food. And that makes a huge difference. But I'm not completely sacrificing, and yet I'm making really conscious choices so that I don't have to suffer long term. Little choices like that helped me to get pregnant naturally in my 40s. It's huge. So enjoy the journey. Figure out ways that work for you, that feel like you're making the changes necessary, but you're not completely depriving yourself of things. Because again, Western mentality, we tend to think we have to go hard or go home. It's all or nothing. It's black or white. If we can't exercise 3 days, we're not going to do it at all. Like, it's always one extreme or the other, and that's not doable. It's not sustainable. Find a way to create balance using these 3 tools, these 3 rules of the road. and figure out how it's going to feel best for you and feel aligned for you to make certain compromises at certain times, certain changes at certain times, and see how your cycle unfolds month after month. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Reproductive Rebel. Reproductive Rebel is recorded by certified peri-steam hydrotherapist and acutonics practitioner, herbalist, and Chinese nutritional therapist Adrienne Irizarry of Moon Essence LLC. If you are interested in setting up an appointment for one-on-one support, ordering from our store, or checking out our course offerings, visit our website at moonessence.life. Be sure to subscribe to our newsletter and get insider information on upcoming events and offerings. Join the conversation. Like and follow us at Moon Essence Me on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. Your voices make this program possible. Thank you all for your continued support.